What's up, my wizards? It's Deb from Mtg on the YouTube.com down there with Like Magic, and today I'm going to show you some cards I'd like to see in Amonkhet. I do this every time a new set comes out. These are just some cards of my own design that I would really like to see, and there's probably like a less than 1% chance of anything like these actually being in the set. But it gives me a chance to have some fun, and it gives you guys a chance to go to the comments section, tell me what cards you want to see. It gives like people a chance that don't like the cards to be like, your cards are bad in the comments section. So everyone has a good time. And it's fun, because fun things are fun, it's fun to dream. So let's start with something that we're all like 99% sure is going to be in the set, and that's some more gods. But we don't know what form they're going to be in. I highly doubt that they're going to be enchantments, and there's a theory on Reddit that says that these things might be artifacts, and I think that holds a lot of credence. Now, the reason that we're all pretty sure that they're going to be in this set is because Wizards has already shown us artwork for 5 different gods. And hey, look at that, there's 5 colors. So here's some of this art right here. Now, as far as the theory that they might be artifacts, you'll note the human arms and legs and other appendages on these things right here, but they all are also wearing what appear to be masks. But they might not be masks. They may be, some sort of machinery that's integrated into their body. It's entirely possible. So going off of that theory, I feel sort of obligated to at least cover one god and what I think these things might look like in the set. So with that in mind, here's Bastet, God of Cats, I guess. I don't know. I can't think of any god of what. Bastet is not going to be the thing's name because that is the Egyptian big cat lady god. But I figured I'd lift that name right out of Egyptian mythology and put it right here because it made the most sense. But in any case, it's 3 mana. That's 1 and 2 white for a 4/6 legendary artifact. It has first strike, and whenever you gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. Now, while you have 10 or more life, Bastet is a creature. Okay, so we're still going off the Theros mechanic here to where you have to fulfill some kind of condition before these things are actually creatures. And for this one, it's a creature really, really early in the game, but the farther you go into the game, the harder it is to keep it a creature. And it actually facilitates itself remaining a creature. Anything that gains your life will gain you that much plus 1, which is actually kind of cool because I really like life gain as a mechanic, but it doesn't do anything by itself, and it's one of the most maligned things you can do in Magic. Like, what would you rather do, gain 5 or draw a card? Draw a card is the correct answer. But cards like this that allow you to get extra value out of gaining life are always good cards, or at least I always like cards like these. Add to that we're in a format with Lone Rider and Aetherflux Reservoir and Felidar Sovereign, and yeah, Felidar Sovereign's still going to be in the format because BFZ and Oath do not rotate when Amonkhet comes out. I keep telling people that in the comments. I'm going to remind you one more time that Wizards changed their rotation schedule. BFC and Oath will not rotate when Amonkhet comes out, so you could potentially play this if it were real, which it's not, with Felidar Sovereign. I guess the only other thing I'd like to address here is that this does not have Indestructible. And this means this could be taken out by natural state. But you need to be able to remove this thing because obviously the stats are really, really good for how much you're paying for it. And when you play it on turn 3, it's almost certainly going to be a creature. But, you top deck it later on in the game, it might be almost completely useless. So there's that too. But as far as it not being indestructible, Bolus rules this plane. Nicole Bolus rules Amonkhet right now, from all we've been told, at least so far. So these sort of gods from an age gone by, and by the way, that's why they might just be idols that turn into creatures when conditions are met. Possible, they may be like idols from a bygone age, but maybe, since Bolus rules now, all these gods have lost a lot of power, which means that they might not be indestructible, lore-wise. Moving on to the next card, though. Well, in the Professor's predictions for Amonkhet video, it's a pretty good video, he said that there probably won't be, pyramids or anything like that in Amonkhet, which I tend to agree with. Keep that in mind before I show you this card. But, you're getting a set that's Egyptian themed, so I just couldn't resist making a pyramid card. Here's Pyramid thing right here. You can tell I love naming cards. It's 4 mana for a legendary artifact. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may create a 0/1 artifact creature token. Players cannot play creature or planeswalker spells. Sacrifice 3 creatures, destroy Pyramid thing. Any player may play this ability. Well, another reason that I wanted to make a big pyramid thing is because I always like to make a big, stupid, crazy artifact that pushes some design limits and stuff whenever I do these videos. And so pyramid was my excuse to do that. Now, I've always liked a couple of different kind of cards here, and they're matched together on this. And honestly, these two designs are often put together. But I like cards that have an ability on them that any player can play, and I also like cards that keep anybody from doing a specific thing. You can't play this unless you do this. So this is one of those cards, and I think it might be like kind of neat in Commander, because some people are going to want those servos every turn, or those constructs every turn, and then some people are going to want to get rid of it as soon as possible. Now, in a game of Standard, if you play this on turn 4, as long as you've controlled the game up to that point with counters or removal or whatever, your opponent's going to hate this card, and it's going to buy you a lot of time to do stuff. That said, you may be turning on synergies for your opponent by giving them artifacts every turn. Plenty of decks want artifacts in this format, and the card is fairly slow, and it takes up the slot in a control deck that like a board wipe would normally take up, So I'm not really sure about how much play it would actually really see, especially considering if you're playing this turn 4 even on the play. If you're playing against aggro, your opponent has done an awful lot by then to mess you up, and if you haven't been able to just like counter remove every turn up until that point, then they're still going to have some stuff on board that can mess you up, and this doesn't actually affect what's already on board, and a lot of Magic players don't necessarily think cards like that are often competitive, but I think this might have a chance, especially as a sideboard card. I don't necessarily think that it's super broken, is what I'm getting at, but I do think it's interesting, and that's mostly what I was going for on this one. Card number 3, a lot of people are saying that what we need in Amonkhet is something that messes with the opponent's graveyard. We really don't have like hardly any graveyard hate in this format right now, and a lot of decks play out of their graveyard. We've got Delirium is a thing right now, and Delirium decks are still in the format. Absolutely. There's Torrential Gearhulk. It'd be nice to remove graveyards just because that card exists. Scrap Heap Scrounger, the Blue-Red Emerge deck. There's just a lot of stuff right now that utilizes the graveyard. So we need some way of dealing with those strategies. So here's Yardsale right here. And actually, I feel that's actually a good name. Yardsale is just a white mana for a sorcery. Exile any number of cards from target player's graveyard. That player gains 1 life for each card exiled this way. Or you could just reprint Tormod's Crypt, Wizards. That would be also an artifact for Improvise and an artifact in the graveyard for your Delirium, and it would also get rid of their Delirium. And blah. You could just reprint Tormod's Crypt. You could do that. But still, this is a very cheap, just 1 mana way of eliminating target cards in your opponent's graveyard, or just saying get the whole thing out of here for just 1 mana, which is not a terrible deal, especially in Standard. But I do have to point out before somebody else in the comments does, that you could do some particularly evil stuff with this in Triskaidekaphobia. Think about that. Another format-specific answer that we need right now is something that kills Planeswalkers. Obviously Saheeli Rai is a big deal. Gideon's a big deal. There's Liliana. There's a bunch of stuff in this format. People are siding in Chandras and whatnot. So, and there's going to be more Planeswalkers in Amonkhet, So we're going to at least see another Gideon and another Liliana. We know that. But in any case, we need something that kills Planeswalkers, and we want it to be cheap, and we'd prefer it to be instant speed. Now, I've wanted this for a while now, as evidenced by the fact that I did a card like this in my last video, but this one's going to be different because it better not be the same card. So here's Just Die right here, because again, I love coming up with names. It's just green and a black for an instant. Just Die cannot be countered. Destroy target Planeswalker. You lose 2 life. Simple and easy. Now this would specifically be something to help Green-Black get back on top, or at least retake its spot as one of the top 3 decks in the format. Green-Black Delirium just did really well over the weekend, so that's good to see, but everyone that's anyone will still tell you that Mardu and Saheeli are the 2 decks to beat in this format, and Green-Black is in the back seat if it's still in the car at all. Some people deny that. Some people think it's in the trunk. So Green-Black needs another piece to really come back a little bit and be a real deck, and this is probably not a main deck piece. It might be with Saheeli being so big right now, and you got to worry about walkers against Mardu. So it might be a one-of in the main deck, but this is definitely a hot sideboard piece that can't be countered, which is specifically good against Saheeli combo. Because nothing feels worse than having the Answer to Cat combo, playing it, and it getting negated, which happens kind of all the time. That's how Saheeli wins. So I just want something that can't be countered and kills Planeswalkers, which I think is mostly only important in Standard, but maybe you'd play it in other formats. I don't know, maybe. So those were a couple of format-specific answers that I think we kind of need right now, but now I'm going to talk about some stuff that I just want. These are just some cards I think would be neat to have, and I want to talk about these for just a second before I get around to Bolus. Although one of these, by the way, the first one I talk about, is kind of a format answer. So let's talk about this real quick. Here's Oasis Palm, which is, funnily, probably my favorite card of the day. I really like this thing. This is just 1 and a green for a 4/4 Defender Reach. At the beginning of your attack step, Oasis Palm loses Defender if more than 1 land entered the battlefield under your control this turn. First of all, it's got 4 power and it's got reach and it's only 2 mana, so it blocks and trades with Heart of Kiran. That's why it's a format answer right there. But also, this plays really neat with a couple of things in the format right now. It plays pretty cool with Evolving Wilds. That's the first thing you want to point out. It plays good with the Gitrog monster. Anytime you make that card better, you've got a fan. And Mina and Din, this plays pretty well with. So I can't really tell or not if this is one of the more broken pieces I've shown you so far. The God seems to be sort of broken, but maybe not. I can't really... That one's probably the most broken thing I've shown you so far. But I can't tell if this is like too good or not. Probably not. Although 2 mana, 4 power guys are great, especially when they also have 4 toughness and reach. It's going to be tough for your opponent to get through with anything, and mostly they're going to be trying to trade with it in combat. Or just go over it, obviously, in combat. But they can also, like, Fatal Push it, or any other kind of removal can take this out. So I don't really think it would be, like, that busted. Like, even a Harness Lightning with just 1 more energy can kill it. Like, there's 100 ways to deal with this thing early. You know something else I'd be really happy to see return? Useful land destruction. Useful. There's some decent land destruction pieces in the format right now, and I've actually got a land destruction deck in the works that I'm going to be showing you really soon here. So I don't think that land destruction is at its worst right now, although Wizards has tried to see to it that it's at its worst. I would like to see something that's a little bit more usable than the standard LD fare. So with that in mind, here's a card that kills lands. This is Cursed Soil right here. It's 2 and a red, that's Stone Rain mana, for an enchantment. When a land enters the battlefield under a player's control, sacrifice Cursed Soil and destroy that land. Well, the first thing you'll notice, hopefully, is that it says a player's control, which means that you're locked out of playing lands too, unless you want to basically give up a land. At first, I had this card written as, you know, whenever a land comes into play under their control, you may sacrifice Cursed Soil and destroy that land. I feel like we should give the opponent a little bit more agency in what land gets killed, basically. But since it's written this way, they can now just run out a land that they don't care about as much as a land they really need, you know, and go ahead and take care of the Cursed Soil. Or they can just wait you out, you know, until you have to play a land. That could happen too. So I feel like this gives the opponent a little bit more agency, which is what I think Wizards is mostly scared of. That, you know, it's just too good, it's unfun, it gives the opponent no option. So I think that this is at least a little bit more fair, although it is an enchantment and there's lots of ways to bring those back. You know, we've got... first of all, Nissa Vital Force can just bring back permanents, and we've got Restoration Specialists, so red-white land destruction could be a thing if this card existed, you know. I just think there's probably ways to exploit this being an enchantment, but, you know, it's also a way to bring Stone Rain back without bringing Stone Rain back entirely, and it also doesn't affect the board immediately or anything, you know. If your opponent has 3 lands, they still have 3 lands. The thing with Stone Rain is that if your opponent has 3 lands, they now have 2. This is way easier than dealing with Stone Rain, as far as I'm concerned. So now let's talk about some Bolus stuff, because that's why we're all here, for the most part, you know. I know that I couldn't get away with not showing you Bolus stuff, you know. So we'll get to Bolus himself in just a second, but the first thing I want to show you is probably the most broken, ridiculous card of the day, and I'm probably going to get it in the comments for this one, but I just wanted to make a super powerful card, especially one that's very good against one specific deck right now. So with that in mind, let me show you Bolus Charm right here. Bolus Charm is an instant that costs Grixis colors. That's a blue, a black, and a red. It's an instant. Choose one modal spell, counter target spell. Look at target opponent's hand and choose a card there. That player discards that card. Or deal 4 damage to target creature. Now, this card would be good against nearly everything, but look what it's specifically good against. It can deal 4 damage to Felidar Guardian. That's awesome. Or it can counter Saheeli or Felidar. That's pretty awesome. Or it can be played proactively to get either piece out of their hand. So this is just complete overkill. Do something about Saheeli combo, basically. But it can also kill Heart of Kiran, so that's really important in this format right now. It can just counter whatever spell you want, and sure, 3 mana to counter a spell is just cancel, and this is worse than cancel, because it's 3 different colors of mana. That might be hard to get, but I feel like when you put all these abilities on the same card, it's definitely worth playing, and Grixis decks would play all 4 copies of this thing right here. And it might actually make Grixis Control be a faux shiz real deck, because I'd like to see Control be a thing. You know, right now, Jeskai Saheeli is the Control deck in the format, but as people shift to 4-color Saheeli and Mardu becomes the predominant deck in the format, period, people are abandoning Control entirely. Well, this would be good against Saheeli combo, and it would be good against aggro decks, because you get to counter spells, and more importantly, you get to blow up creatures for a relatively low cost at instant speed. But we've reached the end. It's that time. Here's Nicol Bolas right here. Bolas is obviously a Planeswalker. He's 5 mana, that's 2 in Grixis colors, for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. I don't think that he would be the most loyal guy in the world, but you can +2 him and have target player draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, or you can have -2, destroy target creature or Planeswalker, and his -9 is a mini cruel ultimatum of sorts. Target player sacrifices any combination of 3 creatures and or Planeswalkers, discards 3 cards, and loses 5 life. You draw 3 cards and gain 5 life. Well, he theoretically takes 4 turns to get to Ultimate, but if you can get him to Ultimate, that's a pretty stinking good last ability for a guy. But what this thing really is, if you'll notice, is just like an Obnixilis on steroids. You know, Obnixilis, draw a card, lose a life, destroy target creature. This a little bit different, but more or less, you know, very similar abilities. Draw 2, lose 2, but you can target any player with it, so you can finish them off damage-wise. That's kind of cool. And also, you know, destroy target creature, just like Ob, but also destroy target Planeswalker, which I think that Nicol might have the ability to just do. Now, I've tried to balance this thing. It's got a really, really low starting loyalty, and it does, like, damage to you, which, again, I think Nicol Bolas would do some damage to you. I'm not, like, again, I don't think he's the greatest ally in the world, and I don't think that he's particularly affectionate. You know what I mean? I think that he would have some abilities that harm you in some way. I think he would have a pretty low starting loyalty if they made him again today. And they're almost certainly going to make him into a Planeswalker again. This is another thing that we have a 99.9% chance of happening. So here's my take on it. Maybe Wizards will be a little bit more creative. I just went with raw power. Now, before we get out of here, I haven't ever done this before, but I want to talk just briefly about a couple of reprints and a returning mechanic that I would like to see in this new set, and I'm probably going to do this from now on in these videos. But a couple of cards that I would like to see back again, for format-specific reasons. The first one is Char. Now, we don't have to get this one back, but it does kill lots of big creatures at instant speed. Kills Felidar Guardian at instant speed too, and kills Heart of Kirin as well. All at instant speeding. Yeah, it does deal a little damage to you, but I think this would be a great piece right now. Really, really utility for taking out the 2 best decks right now, and it can just deal damage straight to the dome, which is pretty cool too, for, you know, burn decks. And, you know, Mardu might actually even end up playing like 2 of this main board. I'd like to see Char back. But even more than that, and the card that I'd like to see back the most, definitely, without a doubt, is Pithing Needle. Pithing Needle is just a 1-mana artifact that does everything right now. First of all, Crew is an activated ability, so that's pretty stinking sweet. Pithing Needle could keep things from being able to crew. It could also keep Saheeli from doing anything as long as it was in play. And there's a bunch of other activated abilities we have to worry about right now. You know, Marvel's out there. There's some stuff. So Pithing Needle would be really, really cool to have right now. And it's just a 1-mana artifact for things like Improvise. That's pretty cool too. And the returning mechanic I'd like to see, and I'll take a shot at this because, you know, we have gods. We know they're coming up in the next set, or at least we're fairly certain they're going to be in the new set in some capacity. So I'd like to see Devotion back. That was a really, really fun mechanic that was enjoyed by nearly everybody. It was partially broken. There were a lot of good decks that focused around Devotion. But I still really like the ability. So does nearly everybody I know. I think Devotion was a very popular ability, or a popular mechanic. So I'd like to see it back. And it was also great for, like, budget deck builders, which I am definitely one of, so of course I'm biased here. But I'd like to see it back if for that reason alone. You know, it helps you build monocolored decks more easily, and Devotion cards were really good in all of those. Like, Grey Merchant of Asphodel is still a great card in the Pauper format, and it's one of the better cards with Devotion. I've just always loved the mechanic, and I think that it would be a nice one to return someday, and now might be a good time considering we got gods. But anyway, that is all I've got for this one. I think this one ran a little bit longer than I expected it to, but I hope you're still here. If you are, let me know down there in the comments how you felt about all of these. How busted are my cards? What did I miss about how stupid my cards are? All that stuff. Let me know what cards you want to see. Invent some cards. Let me know what reprints you want to see. What returning mechanics. We can have a really long conversation in the comments section this time. And usually these videos get a bunch of comments because there's a bunch of stuff to talk about. People are excited about the new set and they want to tell everybody else what they want to be in there. So let me know all that stuff down there in the comments. Like the video if you like the video. Sub if you're new. Hit the bell and follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev. I am Dev from SBMTG. Look at the synergy there. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, my wizards.